This episode contains discussions surrounding mental health. If at any point during the episode you or someone you know is in need of support, call 988 or visit iasp.info for help. Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Make Mental podcast. Caleb Munsky here, and today we have on, I catch myself saying it often, but I truly mean it, another special guest. It's always good to connect with an old acquaintance, right? So today we have on Will Baggett, and he is the former operations manager for the college football playoff and a dynamic keynote speaker. In 2020, he was recognized by the White House for his outstanding communication and service to the President of the United States. Throughout his career, he has coached 19 NFL drafts, two of which I believe were first round picks, and assisted at events like the Super Bowl and other various college football bowls. He's the author of The Blueprint to a Successful Career, a book that is now nationally recognized by 6 accredited universities. He's highly regarded as the most interactive speaker in the country and has more recently found himself as number 42 on the 2024 Top 20 Speakers to Watch list provided by Motivator Music. Currently, along with many other things, Will finds himself partnered with Darren K. Roberts as together they run Monetize Your Message, which is a public speaking education platform for individuals to develop their speaking skills and quite literally monetize their message. So thank you, Will, for taking the time out of your day to sit and chat with me. I'm super happy to catch up and just see how things are going with you and pick your brain.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, thank you for the warm introduction and saying really nice things about me, man. It's been a blessed journey, and more importantly, connecting with people like yourself along the way is what makes it all worthwhile. And just to see the platform that you've built and the opportunities that you've had and created for yourself, I couldn't be more proud. And so there's some people that are in the crowd that like, hey, they're going to be all right regardless. And so I can't take any credit for your success, but I'm definitely glad to be on with you, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for those warm regards as well. And I think you can take a little bit of success, and so can the organizers of that 2022 Career in Sport Forum. Because the more and more I find myself doing the podcast, the more and more I find myself reaching out to people who said, "Hey, we're always in your corner," and probably expected only 3 of us to reach out. So I'm going to be one of those annoying 3 people that reached out and really utilize the expertise of the people from that forum, all the way from the lowest division, smallest school athlete to the keynote speakers such as yourself. And I think I had Dr. Lacey. I don't want to go through naming them all
Yeah,
just in case I miss one,
yeah,
but there's plenty of
yeah.
them. But before we really get into the deep stuff, I wanted to talk about your coaching.
Yeah,
Off
absolutely.
script here, we kind of went rogue and got into some things I wanted to get about after we hit the record button. What is it like coaching youth basketball? I mean, it can be a handful.
Yeah, no, honestly, man, it's twofold, and there's one part I didn't share with you, but so the school I coach for is called the Shelton School, and the children there they all have some special needs, right? So there may be social anxiety disorders, or maybe ADHD or autistic, and I really enjoy working with these kids because they teach you a lot about life, right? And they teach you how to communicate even better than you normally would and I think the thing about it is you wouldn't know if you didn't know them, you wouldn't know, right? Because they're such sweet kids. They really care. They want to be the best they can possibly be, and they deserve a chance. And so basketball was my first love. I actually spent 12 years working in football, but basketball was always my first love. And so to be able to give back and teach the game to kids that are enjoying it, that find camaraderie in it, and we compete at a high level. Right now we're 4-2-1. Right, we have another game on February 3rd, and then after that's the playoffs. And so, I enjoy my kids, man. Jackson, Brett, Ben, Lincoln, Jackson, like those are my guys, man. So it's been a fun ride, and yeah, I'm enjoying every step of the way. But it's definitely a good challenge and something that I welcome. And I always wanted to coach youth basketball. I've always wanted to do it, probably since I was an adult. To be able to share the love of the game, because sports, as you know, is just a microcosm of life. You in defeat, in victory, you learn a lot. You know what I mean? You kind of ride with your brothers, and you go down with your brothers sometimes. And so we've lost 2 games by like 1 point, so we learn a lot about
Oh,
life pretty quickly. Right, pretty grueling, but it's been an awesome experience, and I couldn't ask for a better opportunity, to coach, and I appreciate the parents that entrusted me with their children.
yeah, basketball is your first love. I'm assuming you played it growing up. Were you an athlete in college? Were you just the
Mhm.
high school superstar? What's going on with your athletic journey, and why aren't you in
Yeah,
the NBA right now?
yeah, right, exactly. So I didn't win the height lottery, right? So at a sprawling 5'7", not too physically intimidating, where I'd be just going in dunking on people. So, what I was a sharpshooter. You know what I mean? I wasn't the best ball handler at the age I needed to be. I can handle a lot better now, but I was a high school has been. So I didn't play in college. I only played some intramurals. Did it win a couple intramural championships, right? But now I'm just
Did you
LA
get those
business
free
also.
T-shirts they give out with
Oh,
them?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I
I'm
got
wearing the
one in
sleep.
my college career.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
sleep. I sleep in them. You know what I
You're the
mean?
Tom
That's
Brady of intramural basketball.
absolutely. Just go to. I want to go to bed a champion, right? So I sleep in my
There we
intramural
go.
championship T-shirts, man. So, high school has been for sure.
And I think that's interesting too. It all kind of blends together. Why we brought you on to pick your brain about life and business and sports and just really mental health in general. You said that sports are a microcosm of life, right? And you knew you had value as a basketball player. Um, I like to think you could have been the Spud Webb of the NBA. Maybe you wouldn't be the shortest player ever, but
Yeah,
I
I can
think
jump
you got
though.
to
I can
buy.
jump.
I think
I had
you got to. I
36
think
inch.
you got to buy an inch. I think you got to buy an
Yeah,
inch. But
yeah. I had a 36 inch
you,
vertical. Yeah, I can jump.
holy crap, that's pretty tall. That's pretty high.
Back, yeah, back in the day. Yeah, my knees. Over
Eh,
30, the knees. You know what I mean. So,
well,
yeah,
I'm
but
I'm 5 6 years removed from 30, and my knees are already like I can't
yeah.
really imagine. But you saw your value and what you could bring to the
Mhm,
court, right? You just told me you
mhm,
could jump, you could shoot,
mhm.
and you were realistic about your approach to your life, right? You knew you weren't going to go to Duke, right, and start or be at this, but you still wanted to enjoy the sport you love. So you coached, you played intramurals, you still got those championships, you still got that feeling of
Yeah.
success and the emotions that come with it. As someone who applied to 76 jobs before they found a job, yes, I know I applied to a lot of jobs. It was oftentimes really tough to remember my own value, whether it was personal value, like not feeling like a failure, or professional value, like I have a master's degree, I got it in 5 years, I played sports all those years, I was captain, right? Like I know I had value. How can we understand maybe sooner? I see it now, but how can we understand sooner that you don't necessarily need to force yourself somewhere that doesn't
Mhm.
value you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't find a value in a job anyway. No, never. You never find value in a job. I would not recommend that. And I say that as someone that's been fired like 4 times. You're not going to find value in jobs, right? Because I mean, they give you a means of supporting yourself. You can have camaraderie with your colleagues, whether it's virtual or in person, whatever it is. But that'll never define your value because the day that you transition, take your last breath, they're going to post your job in the next 48 hours. It's a machine that's going to keep going with or without you. And so I don't think it's very. I don't know if it's the best method to take to find your value in that. Now, granted, we have to support ourselves, right? We need opportunities. We have to pay the bills, pay the rent. Inflation is real, right? So I get that part. But I think when you are applying to these jobs, they're not seeing and meeting you and knowing who you are as a person directly. They're seeing a piece of paper, right? And they're benchmarking against other pieces of paper, or they're running it through a scanner to get a certain amount of buzzwords. Maybe you needed 12 and you had 11, right? There's so
Mm.
many metrics and variables that have nothing to do with you as a person, to the point where you just can't take offense, in someone not seeing your on paper value or whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, it's competitive, right? Someone may have, their uncle might have been roommates with the CEO, and that's just how it shook out. And in my first year, I applied for a job with the college football playoff in 2016, and I was turned down for it. And I knew everybody's middle name. I knew their mother's name. I knew their social security numbers. I mean, there's nothing I did not know. But there was someone that was more qualified for the role. He ended up getting the job, and then 9 months later, the chief operating officer reached out to me directly, And he remembered me and said he was creating a position that was just fit for my personal skill set. Right. And so sometimes rejection or so-called, redirection is just protection because the role that I would have gotten a reply for, it wouldn't have been the best fit for me and my skills and how I like to operate. And so I fell in the right position to where we're supposed to be. And I think as you get older and you grow, you really, and as things, go the so-called wrong way, and you look back and you're like, wow, I see why that happened now. When that happens multiple times, you begin to realize like, hey, I know who's in control. Like I know that there's a plan for me. I know that if I can't find my car keys, maybe I'm being protected from a car wreck, right? And so I don't get too bogged down when something doesn't go my way because when things go according to plan, you don't really learn a lot, right? You're going to continue that same repeated action to get the same projected or expected outcomes and results. But when things don't go your way, when they go left or they go awry, you realize you have to recalibrate, change something, see how you can, get out of the big stack into the short stack of resumes or whatever it is. And so for me personally, I've embraced the suck of when things don't go my way because that's an learning opportunity to get better because it takes a really, really elite person for something to go as expected and then still strive to get to that very next level. People do it, right? You got your standout people, but it's not the average, it's not the norm. So that's kind of how I've sought to embrace it. But your value will never be found in the job. I just firmly don't believe in that.
Go Global is a free flowing technology company that handcrafts, embellishes, and manufactures garments and accessories. Designed on the principles of people, places, and possibilities, Go Global reimagines fashion and is inspired by you, the people of the world. Yeah, so you mentioned too, like your value shouldn't be solely in your job. Can you take those lessons you just talked about and apply them in your personal life or vice versa? I mean, so it's all interconnected, right? It's like this giant web of life that does take a long time to figure out. And I argue that even the oldest human being still hasn't figured it out. Otherwise, we would have solved the meaning of life. But how do you walk that fine line of, okay, these lessons I learned in my personal life, let's bring them into business. These lessons I've learned in my business, let's bring them into my personal life without crossing the line.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you have some things that are tried and true, some character traits as far as being honest, being authentic, being able to communicate well, treating people with respect and dignity, and, following up. I mean, it all kind of ties together, like you said. And so for me, it's like I try to bring as much of myself to business as I possibly can. Because at the end of the day, people are going to do business with who they trust. Like, for instance, I'm a commercial broker. Everyone who's ever taken the real estate exam and is licensed and has a focus on commercial, whatever it is, or even just residential, we can all do the same exact job, right? We all have the same systems, the same capability, the same forms. They're going to trust the people that are the most knowledgeable, that they enjoy working with the most, people that care about them, that are authentic, authentic. I don't know why I lost that word.
That's all right.
Authentic, and they are going to go with those people, and those they're going
Mhm.
to trust. Like I know people that are in the same space as me that have gotten zero clients, and they've been licensed for over a year. I've been licensed for 3.5 weeks, and I've talked to 5 clients already. You know what I mean? Just because when you do things well in a different space or a different lane, that can be transferable to other spaces. Like, hey, and this is what I hope is said about me. I've never known Will to half-ass anything. I don't expect him to do that in this new space he's in. Let's give him a shot, give him a chance, right? So I think that some in some cases people can resent you if you are talented at multiple things or you can do multiple things. For me, this is how it kind of looks from a flywheel standpoint. So I work with collegiate athletes. I work in the private sector. I work with corporations. I also have NFL clients. Well, NFL clients, some of them have discretionary income, but they may want to invest in commercial real estate, right, to save on taxes and things like that. So it's not as disconnected as it may appear on the
Mhm.
surface, right? When I'm coaching basketball, I'm still communicating, right? Just like I'm doing when I'm speaking in front of hundreds of people, right? I still have to learn how to engage a group, how to get them to listen and be able to follow instructions and buy into what I'm trying to share. And so I try to make sure everything that I'm involved in has some level of connection or transferability to whether it's business or my personal personal life. So that's how I've orchestrated it in my own manner.
Yeah, well, I asked you on this podcast knowing you wouldn't half-ass it, so that is said about you when you're not in a room.
Yeah,
Um,
I appreciate that.
have you always been this intentional with your decision making, or is this something you stumbled into the more and more you dive, the deeper and deeper, I guess, you got into your career?
Mhm. I would say I think the change happened for me. It may sound cliche, but 2020 was the definite change. The absolute worst year of my life. In retrospect, it worked out great, but when you're in it, you're in it. And I didn't have the mindset now of like, hey, I'm just learning. It's all going to be okay. It wasn't there in 2020, if I'm being totally honest. But 2020, lost my job. My health declined pretty significantly. I had to sell a business and lost a bunch of money on it. Had some personal stuff that didn't go my way. I mean, it was just bad. All this happened from March to December of 2020. And so in 2021, I had to start over completely. I became a teacher at a charter school and went from making X amount of dollars to making 70% less pretty quickly. Right. And I worked that job for 6 months. Then that job was actually, that position was eliminated. And I had like a month left on my lease, didn't have a steady job. So I had to just can't just let my lease run out. And I moved back home to Mississippi with my parents for 2 months to recalibrate and just try to get back, just get back to equilibrium, right? Get back to some level of sanctity or some level of just getting back on the right track. And that was a difficult time. And so after that, I think that's when everything shifted for me because I saw how every aspect of what happened worked out for my good, right? It worked out in my favor.
Yeah.
And I think for me as well, like I have great parents. They've been married almost 45 years. And my dad was a no BS type of guy, right? He laid the law down. He made it very clear what our family standards stood for. And I think that's how I kind of got into the branding side of things because it was inbred when I was 5 years old. My dad was always telling me, like, hey, this is our family. This is what we're about. This is what we do. This is what we don't do. And if you went outside of those lines, there were consequences, right? There was a healthy fear that he instilled in us. And I think that kind of carried over. And I think the other side of it is I'm a seventh generation entrepreneur, dating back to my grandfather, who was born like in the 30s. And so, at 7 generations since then, there's been some level of business in all the males on my dad's side of the family. And so, it's just something that's inbred, I believe. But also, I think coaching, I was a strength coach for about 6 years, Baylor, TCU, SMU. And I think that really changed my life. Coach Kaz Kazadi is one of my top mentors. He's at TCU now as a head strength coach. And I think the biggest thing was when I came into coaching, I kind of came into it by mistake, to be honest with you. It was truly a mistake. And I ended up doing it for the next 6 years. And I never got paid a dime. It was all volunteer work. And I loved every minute of it. But I think for people that have certain skill sets or talents, that you can bring 70% to the table. Like if you think about yourself or think about an athlete on your team to where on one leg, he's still better than half the team, right? From my standpoint, at 60, 80, 70%, I still can perform better than the norm, in terms of, getting things done, executing, all that kind of stuff. He was the first one to say, hey, I don't care what the external factors look like or who's around you. I want 110% no matter what. Because I was given like 70 or 80 because I knew I could get by with it and it would look good, because most people are average. Most people operate with an average mindset and have average expectations. And he was the first one to say, hey, I know what your capacity is. I'm not going to let you dip below it. And I think that's what set me on the trajectory I am now.
Yeah, why do you think people operate on that average spectrum? Is it out of fear? I mean,
It's out of
I'm just
fear.
curious.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fear, it's imposter syndrome, it's learned helplessness, which is a big term in psychology. Where there was an experiment that they did where they put a bunch of fleas into like a jar, and fleas. I don't know if you know this can jump about 8 to 13 inches. That's how they end up on pets and things like that because they got hops, right? They got serious bounce,
They got
and they
nothing
put
on
them
you.
in this jar. Right, yeah, right, 36 inches, baby, right? So they would hop out of this jar naturally, right? Because they don't want to be trapped and confined in that area. Well, they took a lid and screwed it on top of that jar, so the fleas couldn't escape. So they're jumping up and hitting their head on that lid, on that kind of glass ceiling, so to speak. Left it on for 3 days. After 3 days, they removed the lid, and the fleas never once jumped past the height of that lid ever again. Learned helplessness. The other side of it was these fleas began to procreate, had offspring, and their offspring never went beyond the height of that lid because they were taught generationally, hey, not to color outside the lines, not to try to go for the best, the top of the top, and try to be elite in what you do. And so that learned helplessness concept has a lot of people playing victim. Oh, blame the government, blame, the weather, blame inflation. Like, one of my favorite speakers, and I don't listen to many, is Jim Rohn. And one thing he always talks about is don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. And so that's the approach that I take. Like I'm 42 on the list, and lists are subjective, right? There could be someone I never heard of that could be, better than all 100, right? And they could be on the come up now. They're very subjective, but from the standpoint of that confine and in that context, I have everything I need to get to the top if I want to get there, right? It's not going to be anybody's fault if I don't get there. It's completely in my purview, right? Because we all have the gifts and the ability to communicate, and all have free speech. It's for us to brand ourselves, to improve ourselves, improve our skill set, our craft, to get to that next level. And that's nobody's fault. I take extreme ownership. That's my whole approach. And I think if we all did that, I think people will be able to look in the mirror more and to say, hey, it's on me to get me where I want to be. So that's my approach to it.
Empire Specialty Printing is a family owned and operated screen printing and promotional products company. ESP has been in business for over a decade by providing consistent and high quality service. Products include custom hoodies, shirts, hats, business supplies, and much, much more. Whether it's for a family party, school team, group, or corporate apparel, Empire Specialty Printing has what you need to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, and I appreciate that perspective. I think a lot of times we hear it, especially as athletes, but we still like to blame coach, or we like to, like you said, like to blame the weather. Maybe our weight room's not the greatest. Maybe we don't have Division I research. Like the list could go on and on. Those are just some common ones that I've even said in my past. Um, One thing you did say too, though, is it's you wish maybe this isn't exactly what you said, but you referenced that you wish you had the mindset of like, oh, it is a learning experience the entire time. How do you navigate the slippery slope from falling into what I call it's the learning trap, right? Like every mistake you
Yeah.
make, oh, it's a learning experience. Oh, it's a learning. Oh, it's a learning. Like if you go
Hmm.
down that path, that becomes a bad habit. How can you
True.
nip that in the bud and not slide down that path of everything's learning experience?
Yep.
I'll figure it out one
Yep.
day.
Absolutely, yeah. My dad always said, if the dog bites you the first time, it's the dog's fault. But that same dog bites you again, it's your fault, right? Because you knew the dog bit. And so, I think in my case, we all make mistakes, and we all there. But some things can be prevented, right? If you don't diet and exercise, your lifespan is probably going to be shorter, right? Some things are preventable through, reading, through studying. Hey, if you want to, not if you want to get the maximize a new gadget that you bought, or read the manual, right? Instead of just putting the batteries in and just turning it on. So there are ways to avoid these so-called learning experiences, or where however you term or frame them, right? Because success and failure are very relative to the person and based on your perspective. So for me, I think is I'm trying to measure 10 times and cut once. And so when I got into even doing commercial brokerage, I watched YouTube videos, and I still do, for at least an hour a night. I bought a 400-page book on commercial real estate investing so I can make sure that I'm getting the knowledge that's been out there for years and years, and getting that in my mind so I can speak intelligently to my clients and not make, some rookie mistakes. So I think some things are preventable. And I think that, a mistake that's repeated over time becomes a decision, right? And we have to make sure we understand the difference between a mistake and a decision, right? Because if you do the same thing multiple times, you're making a conscious decision to say, hey, I'm going to do this, do it my way. And you're not, whatever the outcomes are going to be, you have to live with them, right? So I think that's my major approach, is to make sure that I'm preparing at the highest level. And I'm a voracious reader. Like, I read a lot, read a lot of articles. I want to make sure I'm on top of things, on the cutting edge, of just whatever I'm involved in. And because, like, for me, like I said, some people are just good with, hey, however the wind blows, that's where I'll end up, and where I land is where I land. For me, I had to learn to be honest with myself that I'm a competitive person. Like, I'm driven by competition. Like, I read an article one time about Saban that said, it was like clickbait link, and I clicked anyway, but it was saying that Saban wasn't into college football. I'm like, what do you mean he's not into college football? I got 7 chips. And so I read it, and it said he's not into college football per se, he's into competition. And so I thought about that. Okay, am I into speaking? Yeah, not really. Am I into reading or writing? Yeah, not really. Am I good at those? Yeah, but it's an outcome, or it's comes from the center, the nucleus of human development, right? Human performance. That's my center. That's my nucleus, and that could be 12 branches that come off from that, whether it's writing, speaking, coaching, whatever it is. And so I think we have to find kind of our true center, and everything that branches off that is just a medium by which you accomplish, or you act out that true center. And I think I found that out. That helped me out tremendously.
Yeah, what a perspective, right? And I think a lot of it doesn't matter if you're an athlete or if you're a businessman, businesswoman, poet, whatever.
Mhm.
If you spend
Yeah.
X amount of years doing something, you give a piece of your soul to it, or it becomes a piece of you.
Yes. Yeah.
But it'd be cool if we approached, or rather changed our view of ourself, of maybe it doesn't become a piece of us, it feeds a piece of us, like you're hinting at. And I think the more and more I talk to individuals like yourself, the more and more that's a common theme of like we all have a, not necessarily like a robot, right? We don't just walk around and we don't float in chairs like Wally and whatever, but we we all have this unconscious self that needs X, Y, and Z taken care of, and the way which we go about our day determines if we feed X, Y, and Z. And if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is one of your X, either your X, your Y, or your Z, is competition. And how do you feed it? You get to 42, not to the top yet, but you get to 42, so you can still have some room to eat, right? And on your speaker list, you become an author. You surround yourself with winning coaches. You surround yourself with what is going to feed your competition. I think that's a beautiful way to approach what you're doing, and obviously seems to be working for you. How, I guess, if you do continue to consciously make those same mistakes that that's how you
Mhm.
put it, how do you forgive yourself? Because there has been plenty of times in my life where I know something I'm doing is wrong, or is not, I shouldn't say wrong. Let me rephrase that. I know something that I'm
Yeah.
doing is only helping me 70%, and I know I'm capable of doing something that will help me 100%. How do you forgive
Right.
yourself and then hopefully make that
Mhm.
change?
Yeah, I think before you forgive yourself is asking yourself, why are you not going the full distance? Right? Ask yourself what that's about. Because some people suffer from success. Why do 90 to 95% of people who win the lottery go broke again? Right? Because it's not because they don't have the resources, it's because they don't have the right mindset to take care of those resources. Right? And so I think some people know what can help them, but they're so conditioned to things not going their way or not happening in their favor that they just stop short because they're so used to falling short, or they're so used to trauma, or so
The
used to
fleas in the
whatever it
jar.
is. Yeah, exactly. You can talk yourself out of what you actually deserve very easily. It's very, very easy to do that. And so I think before you get to the forgiveness part is asking yourself, am I truly seeing myself when I look at myself in the mirror? Am I seeing the best? Am I seeing the best version of myself? Am I taking care of myself in order to see myself in that way, right? Whether it's, what I eat, what I consume, how I'm exercising, whatever that is. So I think you have to first do the small things that are going to help you see your highest self. Like, for instance, one thing I do every morning, I take a bath like every morning when I'm at home. I'm in the tub from like 7:45 to like 8:45. I'm in the tub, right? I call it submerged and immersed because I'm in that water, and we're mostly made up of water. The earth's made up of water, and Bruce Lee has a quote that says, "Be like water." So I want to get into a space where I'm submerged, right, in the thing that gives us life the most, right? Because water can flow, water can crash, water can give life, water can take life. Whatever water, whatever form it's in, it takes that form. And so I want to be in that, but also I have this little tray where I set up where I can get on my laptop, read articles or read my book. And I call it up submerged and immersed, right? So I'm submerged in water, immersed in something that I want to learn about or get better in. So I think a lot of people have that issue to where like, okay, I don't know if this is going to work, or things have always gone wrong. Why would it go right for me now? And you develop a pessimistic mindset very easily. So I think the first thing is take care of yourself to see yourself at the highest level and the highest potential, and talk yourself into what you fully deserve. The next thing is asking yourself, what's the best that can happen? What's the best that can absolutely happen? Because most people stop short of doing an extra thing, or I'm not going to send this handwritten note because I don't want to go to the store. I don't want to crack it open. I don't want to write. I don't want to go to the post office, right? And so I learned when you do those things, there's like a 20% gap that people don't do. And when you can go to that 20% and go that extra distance, that's get that second mile, go that second, or even just do the first mile going to 100%, that's going to separate you from 95% of the population off the top, right? And then when you do actually make a mistake or fall short, again, ask yourself, do some introspection. Why did I do this to myself? Why am I self sabotaging, right? What have I told myself that I don't deserve, or who I can or cannot be? Or who am I comparing myself to think that I can't be that because they had a different, lifestyle, different head start, whatever it is? There are different, like for instance, in speaking, we can't fabricate a story or life we didn't live. My mentor and best friend went from Harvard Law to the NFL, Darren K. Roberts, right? That's not my story, so I can't fabricate that. But I can take what I have lived and maximize that and tell that story better. Make sure my transitions are great. Make sure my pauses are amazing. Make sure that my engagement is outstanding, right? I can take what I have and make the best of it. So to answer your question and finally getting around to that part, when you do make a mistake, you have to definitely forgive yourself because no one is keeping score, right? And you have another chance to get up and do it better tomorrow. But if you don't ask yourself, why did I stop short? Or why am I talking myself out of this? It's going to be a continued perpetual cycle. Like, for instance, I just got licensed in real estate last year. I started the licensing process in 2021. I didn't finish until 2023. Why? Because I knew this thing could change my life. I knew that it could add a lot of value. I knew I could change lives, but I got into a mindset, man, like, am I truly ready for this? And so I took some time away from it just to get myself mentally ready so I could make sure I could show up fully and wholeheartedly for my clients and not just jump into it for some type of money grab or clout or whatever it was. So I took that time to say, you know what, this is not the right season for me to complete this and to jump into this. And I think it's okay to be able to step away from something if you need to recalibrate, get your mind right, and then jump back into it.
Yeah, measure 10 times, cut once. I wrote that down when you said
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
It's going to go on my
yeah.
every couple of months. I keep 4 sticky notes on my mirror in the morning. I try not to cloud it with too many. I
Right.
think that one's
Yeah.
going to take the place of the bottom sticky note. I just keep moving them down. So your quote will be on
Hmm.
my mirror for a while. Um,
Hmm.
but I think it's important to note that mindset shift. I know one way that maybe if I say it, it could relate a little bit to even you or some other people. If I heard it, so instead of I have to do something, you say I get to do something. And it's one simple word, big change, right? Instead of, oh, I have to drive to the post office to send X, Y, and Z. I have to go to work today. It's, oh my God, I get to go to work today because there are people applying 76 times and not getting that job. There's number 9 out of, or number 11 out of the pile of 10, right? There's always that one person. And a lot of times relate things to sports still because I'm recently removed from college athletics. But I always think back to the 1980 Olympics when though I forget his exact name. If my brother's listening to this, he's going to kill me because we talk about this all the time. I just can't think of the name now. But the one, or Herb Brooks is the coach. It happened to him when he was a player. He was the last person cut from the roster, and then he had to then do it again. I think his name was Will Cox, maybe. But he was that player who gave everything he had, and instead of saying, oh, he knew he was on the bubble, instead of saying, oh, I have to go, I'm going to get cut, he said, wow, I get the privilege to even know these players who ended up making one of the most incredible sports friends in history. I think that mindset change is essential. So I guess that leads me to another question I've been thinking about here is, okay, your mindset's shifted. You've forgiven yourself. You maybe didn't get to the point where you need to forgive yourself. You figured it out. Whatever happened,
Hmm.
you get to do it now. You don't have to do it. It's
Hmm.
not so much a burden. How
Sure.
high should you set your dreams without letting yourself down? Because I think that's also something that a lot of people are scared of, and that's something that I've been scared of for a while. Admittedly, there are days where
Yeah.
it's not a fear. There are days where it is. Like, we've always heard, shoot for the stars so you land in the sky, right? It's sunshine and
Hmm.
rainbows when you think about it surface level, but once you make that shift in mindset, I
Hmm.
guess you can go from a personal lens here. How high did you set your
Yeah.
dreams? And clearly, as you mentioned, there was a few setbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that you have to figure out why you're doing it. The why is the most important thing. Like Simon Sinek is kind of the master of it with the concentric circles and the why's in the middle, then the how, and then the what, right? That's one of the tried and true methods you have to really just take that introspection. So one process that Darren kind of introduced me to was the three I's, which are introspection, iteration, and influence. So introspection is just what it sounds like, taking some time to take inventory of yourself, what you care about, who you are, what you want to accomplish, but also spending time in those parts of your brain with those experiences that you didn't want to address at that certain time, right? Could have been something that happened, something that didn't go your way, so it could be something that happened in your family. You need to address those things. You need to address them, right? Because at some point they'll creep up, whether in your professional life or your personal life. So it's best to go ahead and address those things while you're by yourself or have that space to do that. The second piece is the iterations of what versions can you bring to yourself, or what versions can you show to the world? Because I think sometimes we're scared to bring different versions of ourselves to different spaces because they're like, okay, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that? Why are you trying this? Right? Why are you doing a podcast? Like, why are you doing broker? I thought you were a speaker. Like, there's a lot of questions, but I've learned that the people that are asking why, over time they'll start asking you how you did it,
Mm-hmm.
how'd you go about doing that, how'd you accomplish that. But you have to get past that initial part, that sucky part of why, and the questioning and the side eyes, and you know what I mean. You got to get past that part, and most people just stop short of even getting to that part, to even embrace that, because they're scared of judgment. Like, people, like, public speaking is the number one fear in the world, number one, right? And I say this as a certified introvert. And I think that when you are thinking about what you're trying to bring as far as your iterations, you cannot be afraid to color outside the lines. Because here's the thing, we're all going to go back to that dirt one day. No one has figured out how to live forever yet. I don't care about all these biological, you know, people spending money to do this and reverse their age. No one's figured out how to, be immortal yet. And some of the best ideas are sitting in the graveyard, right? Because people didn't step out, and so we're literally letting people stop us who don't pay any bills, or you know what I mean, that can't send us to
Yeah.
any place in the afterlife. So I've just lost the weight of people's opinions. That's the biggest weight that I've lost, is the weight of people's opinions. So introspection, iteration. The third thing is influence. Now that you know who you are, you know that you can bring different versions of yourself to different spaces, right? Unapologetically, right? Because you're allowed to be good at more than one thing. The third thing is the influence you have now to spread. So you'll be able to crack that door open for the next person, right? That may have dealt with, mental challenges, that may have dealt with, okay, being a minority in a space where minority is typically not represented. Commercial real estate is 3% minority. I said, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, I want the pressure. Like, I want that. Like, I live for that. And so I think, when you're thinking about setting your dreams or where you want to set them, I think you have to go through that process initially to see, okay, what do you want? Because social media and society will try to tell you what you're supposed to want. Like, some people may just want to go be a mechanic. Some people just may want to go be a farmer. But social media is telling you that you got to go do real estate. You know what I mean? That may not be what you want to do. You know what I mean? And so I think sometimes people are doing things just so it sounds attractive to other people conversationally, but it's not really their passion, right? And so I'm making sure that I'm moving now in a space to where whenever I can share with something that I do with someone, I can speak about it passionately and not about something that's like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this because it sounds good or it looks good or to impress you, right? And I think when you lose the weight of other people's opinions, that's when you really can truly excel to that next level and understand what it is that you want. Because I know people back home from Mississippi that will never make more than $50,000 a year, but they got family and they're rich in relationships, and that's okay. So I think that the dream setting piece, it has to be aligned with your values. It has to be aligned with not so much, okay, what can I get from this, but what can I give from this? Because one of my favorite quotes from Calvin Coolidge is, people are never honored for what they received. Honor has been reserved for those who have given, right? And so I think when you go through the right processes and really just be honest with yourself, you'll figure out where to set your dreams. And but the thing about it is those things can change over time, because one thing is there's a purpose trap to where, okay, what's my purpose here? What am I supposed to be doing? Man, you might just be in a season of incubating. You might just be in a season of learning and confusion and disarray, and this is the purpose for this season. So instead of looking at us as having, and I think we all have a reason for being here, don't get me wrong, but I think you can serve different purposes in different seasons of your life, right? And so I don't look at myself as just, okay, my purpose for being here is X, because that may change next week, right? If I see something else I want to do, I'm going to go do it, and no one's going to stop me, right? I think we should look more to the purpose of the season, as opposed to putting ourselves in a prison of the purpose of the person, right? Because that can put you in a paradigm, right? Or it can put you in a mindset of, if I don't have a specific purpose for this time in life, then I'm worthless. Whereas you look at, okay, the purpose for this season is for confusion, is for me to recalibrate and figure out what I want to do next. So look at the purpose of the season and not just your sole purpose for yourself, to where it traps you into thinking that you have no value just because things are not going your way in that specific season.
Need a tow? Top Shot Transport is the place to go. From cars to machinery, heavy equipment to general freight, Top Shot Transport will give you the best rate. Top Shot Transport is fully licensed and ready to tow your stuff anywhere. Email topshottransport1@gmail.com for more information.
That's a fresh perspective. I don't think I've personally ever heard that before, and I don't. If I have, then and I needed to hear it again, because that was really cool way to look at it. I think again, for someone who's 24 or in that age range, I mean, I say 24, but that just happens to be the most commonly accepted recent college graduate age range. Anyone who's just ended one chapter of their life and is starting another, a lot of times finds themselves in that purpose trap. You kind of just float in limbo where your old self is dead and your new self is not quite born yet, and you're just like, okay, let me just float here, and that gets very frustrating and confusing. And but it's supposed to be, if I'm hearing your message correctly, that is the purpose for that season. Your new self can't be
Yes.
born until you understand your current situation. And I think a lot of times mental health practices help you to get to that point where you can be present. The
Yeah.
power of presence is talked
Yes.
about a lot. Um, One question I did have though is, how do you squash the side eye from within? Because you squish all those
Hmm.
side eyes. How do you navigate the self critic that we all possess?
Yeah, I think the self critic is loud, right? It gets loud. It can be deafening at some points in time. I think that when the self critic is talking loud, you need a community of people around you that are talking louder, because if a person says they've never had, a moment of self-doubt, no matter their success level, I don't care if they're a millionaire, whatever it is, that voice does creep in. I don't care where you are, what you've done. If you say you haven't heard it, I'm going to say you're telling the story, to be honest with you. So I've heard it too, but what I have is around me is a supportive group of people that will remind me of who I am. And sometimes I may forget that, right? Or if I'm falling short, because there's an old song that goes, it's an old gospel song that says, I may be too close to the mirror to see what you see,
Mm.
while you shower down your blessings and glory upon me, right? So you can get as close as you want to that mirror, put your nose up to if you want to, and you still may not see the best in yourself the way people around you that know you, that care about you, may see in yourself. Like, your mom's gonna see the best in you no matter what. She's gonna see the best of you, right? And so I think it's great to have that community around you, people that can remind you to say, hey, you're not operating, at the level you should be operating right now, or you're going off course, or you deserve this, but you're settling for this. You got to have people around you that remind you of that, because we're built to be in community, right? There was a study that was ran to where someone was, by themselves for an extended amount of time. They started hallucinating, right? Because there was no one around them. That's a reality. So we need community, in order to live our best lives, so to speak, and really get to the next level. So I would say when that critic is talking to you, go around the people that you know have your back. That whether you were selling watermelons on the side of the street, or you're making, millions of dollars doing whatever you're doing, they have your back no matter what. And I would say that the circle I have of people around me, they truly believe in me. They know my stand. They know that they can correct me. And so I think in order for that community to be able to drown out that voice of self criticism that you may be speaking at that point in time, you have to show people that you're coachable. You have to show people that you are willing to listen, that you're willing to take constructive criticism, and that you won't fire back on them just because they said something that you may not have liked at that time. Because typically, the people that are saying things to you are the ones that care about you the most. When we were coaching, if we stopped coaching a guy, then he was done. If we were coaching a guy hard, that means that he was going to be a contributor. We needed him at his highest level, right? We need to get him past that 70%. Because at 70, he was better than more than half of the team. If we get him to 100, he's better than the whole team and the other team too, right? So we have to make sure that we are pushing to that level. So I would say it's the community around you is going to help drown out those voices, those self-critic voices.
Yeah, that is powerful too. excuse me, and I think a lot of, like you said, being isolation, being alone, has
Mhm.
done terrible things for people that are in, I mean, solitary confinement. Whatever your standpoint is on that, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. It's a
Yeah,
scary place to be, um, and I think, ironically enough, I guess it's more like satire. It's more like dark humor. COVID brought that out in a lot of people, right? And I'm not just, obviously, if you were stuck at home in your solo apartment, that's more unfortunate than if you were stuck at home with your family. But we've all had that Christmas party where all your family comes back in, and then after 3 days of being with the same people, you're like, I love you, but you gotta go. Like, I don't love you that much, all right? So I think that the power of community is important, right? And we see a lot more struggles with isolation or the aftermath of isolation. Still, there was a study done, and I hate when I can't remember where, because I always like to give the credibility of the source, but it was a reputable source where they said it's going to take twice the amount of time of COVID, whatever you deem that year. So if you classify the COVID years, a lot of people recognize it as those 3 years, those chunk of 3 years.
sure.
It's going to take
Right.
6 years for you to get back to your normal self. And on average, obviously, some people can process it quicker, some people need more time. I
Yeah.
think that almost directly correlates over into life, right? Like, I don't know, you could go all the way down to a first grade spelling test. You The I's and the E's, the I before E except after C, with a couple of tricky exceptions. You learn it, right? But then you still, again, you put the E before the I, you put the E before the I, you put the E before the I until you can spell receive, right? And then once, quite literally, once you have received the gift of being able to correct that mistake, it doesn't matter how long it took, you're more likely to not do it again, and then do what you're doing, and then teach others how they can maybe take 5 practice tests before they can take the test. And then the goal is for them to teach the next person in 4 and 3 and so on. And I think that community can be built in the places where you least expect it. And I'm not saying like walk around in places you're uncomfortable, or just like barge into the middle of a CEO and a board meeting. Like, I'm not saying do that. I'm saying me and you, to be completely honest, there was a moment in time where I struggled, and the Career and Sport Forum presented itself, and I asked you some pretty heavy questions at that forum. And without getting into too much detail, because they are kind of personal to me, you answered them honestly, you answered them truthfully, and I think it's because you saw I came from a place of unknown. Like, I didn't know how to operate in this field, and I want you to know that I took that advice, and it ended up working out as well as it could. But I went to that forum because I was just told it'd be a good opportunity to further my career. Like, it was a selfish move for me to go to that forum, and it was a move that I wanted to make. Right? You have to make some selfish moves along the way, and selfish has such a negative connotation. You have to make some moves that better yourself. Right? And, and that was one of those moves. I got there, and it turns out that that was such a powerful room, and I didn't even realize it until now, until 2 years later. I'm like, they told me it was a powerful room. They told me this, they told me that. I couldn't rush that experience. And I think that is something that happens to everyone. Again, whether they think so or not, we all want the
Mhm.
newest iPhone before it comes out. We all want the next
Yep.
gaming system. We make $50,000. We want 1 million. When we're at 150, we're like, I'm still not there yet. Well, hold on a second. You're just at 50. How can we be okay with just existing in that moment? And once we
Mhm.
figure out the purpose of the moment, again, it's layered, and it's not like a check one, check two,
Mhm.
check three. Each person experiences this differently. But if you are
Mhm.
understanding your mistake, if you're forgiving yourself, if you're living in the moment, shutting off the side eyes, how can we not rush the process? Because I think that is one of the
Yeah.
toughest things to do.
Yeah, yeah. Like again, my favorite speaker, Jim Rohn, he always said that don't get through the day. Don't just try to get through the day. Get from the day, right? Always try to get from the day because so many people will walk in to days with low expectations. It's going to be the same day as yesterday. Nothing's going to be special about it. I'm going to do the same routine, the same route to work, meet the same people, right? I enter every day with expectation. And one of my favorite places and cities to visit is Los Angeles, and the reason is because not everybody out there is a movie star. Not everyone out there is balling. In fact, the homeless rate and people that are living in poverty is pretty significant and pretty high per capita compared to the rest of the US. But there's one thing that LA has that not many other cities have that I've seen, and every person out there has a glimmer of hope in their eye. Whether it's the person on the side of the road that's painting on the sidewalk with chalk, or someone's beating on buckets and beating on trash cans, they all have this look in their eye to say, today could be my day, right? Today could be my day where I get discovered, I meet the right person, a director to come up to me and just change my entire life. I could go viral today. They all have that hope in their eye. And that's what I love about, that place, right? More than anything. And so when I walk in any day, I'm making sure I get from that day, not just getting through it, not just trying to, can I get through this speech or get through that, or whatever. I'm getting gonna get from that day and really be truly present in it. I think what happens is, or what can assist you in that is not having this thing called addiction, or destination addiction, or arrival fallacy, which basically says when I get X, then I'll be happy. Because happiness is either where you are right now or nowhere at all, right? So you have to be able to operate in that come up, right? Because like you say, you move the goalposts. Okay, I got this now. I'll be happy to that. Well, you're just not a happy person at that point, right? Because there's studies, and there was pre-COVID studies and post-COVID studies, and basically, like when you look at the cost of living in any given city, when a person is, 25 to 30,000 above that normal cost of living for that city, the happiness index typically starts to decline or starts to level out, right? Now, there are some studies post COVID, because no one wants to work anymore, where they say that more money does correlate to happiness, because that happiness may be grounded in freedom, right? Or may be grounded in not having to work with terrible bosses. So there's a post COVID study and a pre COVID study. I think it's all depends on the person, like we talked about earlier on. And so I think the best thing you can do is to make sure you're just not trying to rush each moment or each day. Be fully present. Don't look over anyone's shoulder, right? Because it's about to be February. New Year just felt like it was like a couple days ago.
Yeah.
It'll be 2025 before we know it. And so I think, and also, we know not the day nor the hour, right? We know no one knows the day they're going to leave this earth. And so I try to live each day with intention, and that, hey, if it's the last time I spoke to this person, last time I speak to you for X amount of time or whatever, you knew you were cared about, you knew you were valued, and you knew that, you could call on me. And so I think when you're present with people in each conversation you have, I think that can help slow down that rush. But what happens is society speeds you up, or social media speeds you up. Because we're looking at highlight reels, you know what I mean? No one's showing their low lights as much, right? So I think that's what kind of happens. But also, we have access to everything. Used to be you had to, read a book to find something, or read a newspaper, or meet the right person. Now everything's accessible, everything's in front of you. And so it can be debilitating, because you think, "Well, I can do this, and this," but you forget you're one person, right? You can do multiple things, but you're also one person. So shouldn't put too much pressure on yourself, right? Because you can burn out pretty easily, right? And so I'm in a space now to where I only want to do things that I enjoy doing. And I worked for 11 years to get here. Right? I could not rush that process, because I needed to build my brand, build these different businesses up before I could get to a point where I could, be in this position. Now, my mentor, Darren Roberts, he's getting paid 30,000 a speech. I'm not there, right? I'm not there in that moment. And so, but I'm also getting trained and coached by him. So I could be in a rush, say, I want to get what you get. But he's 11 years my senior. He's paid his dues. And so I think when you respect the process and you're enjoying the journey itself, it can slow you. It can help slow you down. When you're not enjoying the process of what you're doing, when you're not in a good work environment, or you're not in a good space, or don't have the right people around you, that's what speeds you up, because you're not even enjoying the company. They say it's not the company, like building and brand, it's the company, it's the people, right? And so that's what I would say is, find you something you can immerse yourself in, to whether you lose time. I'm not saying quit your job and just go, save all the trees, but I'm saying find you something you can immerse yourself in, to where you lose time, and that can help supplement, the things that you're trying to build over time. And you'll look up in 5 to 10 years, and you'll be, much further than you expected. Because I've never known anyone that has worked hard, researched, read books, treated people right, met the right people, followed up, followed through, that has done that for a minimum of 2 to 3 years and not been successful. I know zero people that have not been successful, that have done those things. But the sweet spot, especially for us as speakers, is minimum of 2 years. Most people burn out in 2 months, right? And the last thing I'll say to that end is something I added now. I didn't talk about at the forum when you were in it, but Formula 409. A lot of people don't know why it's called Formula 409. Well, the reason is they got the formula incorrect 408 times. They got it right on the 409th try, and it's on their website. You can actually read about it in their About section. WD-40, they got the formula wrong 39 times. Number 40 was the correct formula. So many people quit, right, after one or two tries. These people tried 408 times and 39 times respectively before they got to that next one, that next one that was the right thing. And that changed everything. Now you have $1 billion generational product that's going to last far longer than our lifespans, right? And so I'm trying to make sure I'm working on things to where my legacy will outlive me. And that comes from just having joy along the journey.
Yeah, and it took over 1,000 tries for the light bulb, for one of the most timeless
Yeah,
inventions we know.
exactly.
I think if you're willing to spend, I should generalize. I think if the human population is willing to spend
Hmm.
409 tries on WD-40, you should be willing to spend
Yeah.
409 tries on yourself because you deserve it.
Yeah, yeah, you have to, and that comes from self belief. A lot of people just don't believe in themselves, and I see it and hear it more than I realize in conversations I have. It would shock you how many people don't believe in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It would absolutely shock you,
Even the most
and
confident person struggles with that.
yeah, absolutely,
It's
absolutely,
a human characteristic. It's not
yeah.
pigeonholed to society's definition of unsuccessful people. I
Mhm.
mean, everyone
Yeah.
goes through it.
College can be a roller coaster, but Zant's got your back. First session? Absolutely free. After that, just $25. Easy on the pocket, heavy on support. Stress, burnout, addiction, or trauma. Zant's expert coaches are here for you. Download the app, kick stress to the curb, and own your college journey. Your mental health, your way. Zant. Download and thrive today.
Absolutely, everyone goes through it. I think here's the thing. This is honest to God truth. When I realized that, I was like, wait, all you got to do is just take action. Even if you're scared, even if you have a little bit of disbelief, just taking action is going to put you past 50% of the population that takes zero action, right? And then if you did action and execute it well at a really high level, now we're getting into the top 25%, top 10% of the population. So a lot of things I look at are statistics. I'm a stats from a numbers person, so I'm looking at statistics. And so you mean to tell me if everybody's scared, the person that has the biggest opportunity is the one that doesn't scared, right? That does it with a little bit of disbelief. I'm going to do it anyway, right? That's what I think it is. And so I think and that's again that's the competitor in me. That's the competitor because I look at the landscape. Okay, gotcha. All right, this is happening. All I got to do is this, and I'll look like this ain't coming. You know what I mean? Again, it just all depends on how you look at it. And the more I realize it, the more people I talk to, the more I want to make sure that how I show up online is exactly how I'm showing up in person. Because sometimes you meet someone say, "Well, like great," in person, just the worst personality just in the world. Like, bro, I didn't think this was this. You know what I mean? So that's one thing I've been very intentional about because I understand my platform. I understand that some people, come to me for hope. They're looking for direction. They're looking for like, hey, if I don't figure out something today, I might check out. Like, that's not lost on me, right? So I try to make sure that I'm showing up in the right way in every single conversation because you just never know, when your last conversation be with someone for whatever reason it may be, just for losing touch, whatever happens with that. But I would say my advice to anybody, man, is just do get scared because you are literally past 50% of the people because most people don't even take any action, comfortable with the status quo, and that's okay. I think some people are being funneled or pushed into think, oh, I got to be an entrepreneur. I got to do this and that because it sounds good, right? I had to work my 12 years before I could ever step out here. I had to pay my dues in that. And the economy just doesn't work if everyone's working for themselves. It just doesn't work. You know what I mean? And the things that we take for granted, like for instance, I'll say this last thing I'll say. Over Christmas time, they gave the city workers like an extended break, and our trash receptacle where they come and pick up had not been picked up in 3 weeks. Suddenly, those people that we may overlook or that sound we overlook of the garbage truck, it became really, really important, right? when you had that much trash piled up over 3.5 weeks that had not been picked up yet, suddenly we appreciated them more, right? Suddenly we appreciated their contribution and realized if someone is not in this role, right, then we don't have a clean place to live. And there's trash everywhere. What's going to attract? Rodents. And now it's all a chain reaction. That's why I try to make sure that no matter what someone does, what they're doing in life at that time, they get my full undivided attention because, everyone is important. Everybody's important.
Yeah, really make peace with the garbage in yourself, for lack of better terms.
Yeah.
Figure out
Yeah.
your why, push forward unapologetically, do it scared. Don't don't let the glass ceiling fool you. Like if it
Hmm.
anything, okay, any invention that's made started out at a small idea. Anyone successful started out at 0 days, 0 seconds. You just got to believe in yourself. The timing has to be right. You can't rush it. Everything just has to fall into place, and as long as you believe, you do it for the correct reasons, you stay true to yourself, and you surround yourself with a powerful community, um, then it seems like you're heading in the right direction, to kind of summarize our conversation here.
Yeah, you said everything I said in like 30 seconds. I love
Oh, I
it.
didn't say it as well. I didn't say. I really had to pay attention, but I kind of want to move into the final segment here of the podcast. I
Sure.
started just asking three off the cuff questions to people. And I want to ask them to you as well. So the first one for you right now, outside of your family, because everyone would like to give their family a hug, who is someone
Hmm.
that you can call out by first name, and if they happen to listen to this, they just get some of your love? Who's someone who you would give a hug right now?
Kelly Brooks. Kelly was someone, so I was in 2020, like I said, I lost my job and I was in a space of deep, deep depression. I was also diagnosed with hyperthyroidism, but I didn't know I had it for like 6 months. And so he literally, for 6 months, and I'm talking every single day for 6 months, including weekends, he answered the phone just to talk me off the deep end, just to speak life into me. And he's not, someone you're not going to see his name plastered on billboards or on your news blogs. But if not for him, I don't know if I'd be here, to be honest with you. So I want to shout out, Kelly is someone that man that really stood beside me, in my darkest times. And there's conversations that we've had that he'll take to the grave was out of respect, that we have for each other. And of course, my main man, Darren K. Roberts. I mean, when I met him, I had two speeches under my belt, and he gave me my third one at the University of Texas when he was teaching there, and I'm up to 254 now, right? Just by his counsel and just what he taught me, and he didn't have to help me, right? Because he could have. Speaking is a very unique industry; it's like a black box around it, and so those two people, from a personal standpoint and a professional standpoint, outside of my parents, have probably been some of the biggest contributors in my life.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. We appreciate both of them in their respective
Yeah.
spaces. What is your favorite book of all time? Kind of a hard switch there
Mm,
from a deep question. You said you were an avid reader. I asked this
yeah.
regardless. What book would you
Yeah.
recommend besides your own that we all go and get?
Mm. Yeah, the book that I would recommend that everyone go and get would be The Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
Okay, I'm gonna have to put that
Yeah,
in the description.
yeah. It sounds like it's not it's way better than it sounds. But Naval Ravikant is one of the greatest thinkers that's ever walked the planet. His unconventional wisdom, his approach to life, his just his this disdain for competing in a rat race is just remarkable. And he has a way of making you think and really understand the true meaning of life. And he talks about there's one quote that stuck out to me I'll never forget. And he says, if everyone has the same disease, no one thinks they're sick, and you can apply that to anything, right? So the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, he's just such an you know out of the box thinker, and he's someone I really just would credit to a lot of the things that I share and the ways that I think now, just because of what he shared, and because a lot of things is easy to get caught up in that. Okay, this is what I should be thinking, should be doing, but it's those that are willing again to color outside the lines are the ones that make the biggest difference, and he wasn't afraid to do that. So the Almanac of Naval Ravikant is one of the top ones on my list.
Very important. And then the last question here, again, another hard switch. If you could only wear one color for the rest of your life, what color would you choose? I know it's very random, but
Oh,
sometimes it's very telling. So,
I love it. No, all black, dark as a tuxedo, baby.
all right,
Because yeah, every color, if you want to make black, you need every single color, right?
hmm.
Right. So all black, you know what I mean? That's what I'm gonna be in, all black.
Kind of fresh, kind of
Always. That,
clean, kind of
yeah,
mysterious,
absolutely.
eye
Yeah,
catching.
exactly.
It's got all
Yeah,
the right
that's my
qualities
whole
to
thing.
to feed your competitive nature. Turns heads.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Because when I come to win, right? So it's gonna be death to imposter syndrome, death to any self doubt. So I'm gonna wear black to that funeral.
There we go. We love it. Well, thank you very much, Will, for taking an hour out of your busy schedule to share your wisdom with us and hopefully help one person over that mental hurdle. I mean, that's all it takes is advice from someone, like I said, who you least expect it from. So we really appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to your journey to number one, and then we'll look forward to your next journey. So thank you again.
Awesome, man. Thanks for the opportunity, Caleb. You're doing a great job. I appreciate you.